need to change that again because you came back on.
Okay.
That's why I wasn't able to do it.
Remind me how to do that.
Go to float to the top right of my box, and there'll be a drop down that'll say make co-host, the three dots.
There we go.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so now we're recording. Yeah, I'm sorry we missed that great question about the keyboards. But to recap, you can try to enter the music using a very cheap MIDI keyboard. I'm sorry, an inexpensive MIDI keyboard. But it might not give you exactly what you're looking for. It'll give you the notes. It might not give you the right rhythms, and you'll have to go in and correct things. Lois?
I don't know if I have like a super old version of Finale, and that's why it's different, but I've been just pressing the play of Finale, and that's how I know if the rhythm is right, if I needed a dotted quarter or if I needed a dotted eighth. But it sounds weird, and this would be nicer because it would sound like piano.
The keyboard is not going to give you a piano sound. The sound that you're hearing from Finale is coming from Finale, and so I can show you. Let me go back into Finale. In Finale, you can choose your sounds. So is everybody seeing Finale now?
Yeah.
Okay. If I go, sorry, let me slow down. If I go into Windows, Score Manager, I'm going to see every staff in my score. So right now I just have one staff. It's called a blank staff. And if I click this arrow, it shows me all the different layers of sound in this staff. So right now they're assigned to Steinway piano. Yours may be assigned to some weird sound that you don't like. But you can go in there and you can say, oh no, I don't want it to sound like keyboards. I want it to sound like a choir or a voice. So you can change that.
Wow.
Okay? It's a pretty easy thing to change. But you know, for now, what I wanted to get back to was how to create this very simple document. The next thing I want to do, sorry, I will slow down again. I'm used to working as fast as I can because I transcribe for people and they want to pay as little as possible. But let's say that this is our whole piece. Adonai Echad. That means I'm going to choose my measure tool right up here, and I'm going to highlight all those extra measures from when I created the document. And let's just delete them. So I highlight those, I hit delete, and now we've got this nice little piece. We know that this piece is going to repeat because we've got the Baruch Shem lyrics, right?
Mm-hmm.
So let's put in a repeat. The way I did that was go up to my repeat tool. I'm double clicking on the measure where I want to put a repeat sign, and then I'm choosing what kind of repeat do I want. In this case, I want a back repeat. If I were doing a coda and all of those things, I have some options for that. Right now, I'm just choosing a back repeat. It's going to ask me how many times. We're going to repeat it 2 times. And then I need to put the other half of my repeat in so we know where we're repeating back to. We're going back to that measure. It's defaulting to a forward repeat because it knows what I'm trying to do. Okay?
Like Facebook, it's getting your information.
It is, but it's not selling it. I wish it would sell it so I could make.
They don't sell it. Sorry, they don't sell it. Okay. Sorry.
So, you know, now we could listen to it. Come on, baby. So you get the point. It'll play it for me. That's a great way to double check and make sure you put in the right notes and the right rhythms. So let's look at what happens when we want to put in some lyrics. Okay? This is our lyrics tool. And as I said, depending on what program you use, some of these tools will look different. They may act differently. Just a question of like exploring and figuring it out. But the concepts that we're talking about today are going to be the same no matter what software you use. So lyrics are attached to specific notes. You can't put in a lyric unless you have a note. So I'm clicking on this note here. That's where I'm going to start. And I literally just type on my keyboard, sh, and then to divide syllables and go to the next note, I hit a dash, ma, and then a space. The difference between the dash and the space is the dash tells me it's a syllable within a word, and the space tells me I'm going to the next word. Shema, yis, ra, dash, el, space, a, dash, do, dash, nai, space, e, dash, lo, dash, he, dash, nu, space, a, do, nai. I'm going to make a mistake on purpose. Ha. So let's say we made a mistake. It's really easy to fix it. There are two options to fix it. One is I can click on my mistake. I can just type what I wanted to type. The other option is I have this nifty lyrics window. And what's cool about the lyrics window is I can take all my lyrics and just highlight them and say, you know what? I want to use a different font. Let's change the font for all my lyrics. Or I can say, well, I typed that one wrong right there, so I just want to fix that one. All right, for some reason that didn't change in there.
What year finale, like what version of finale is this? Because this is much more sophisticated than the one that I have.
Okay, so I'm using Finale 2014, and
yours is in the 21st century.
It is also, we paid the big bucks for it because there are two of us in the household that do this for a living. But we'll see in a minute, or at the end, when we look at software options, there's a version of Finale for $99 that will absolutely do all this stuff for you.
I think that's the one I have, yeah.
Yeah. Just as long as we're talking about buying software, if you are a teacher, and I certainly think that a Cantor probably qualifies as a teacher, I don't know what kind of documentation you need for that, but you should be able to get an educator's discount. Usually those discounts are really steep. So definitely look into that.
So Lisa, it's Robbie. Echad should be capitalized because it is one is a name for God.
Excellent. Okay. Done. Anything else that we need to fix here?
Well, now you need the dash.
Right. It's in the dash. Let's go back and fix that. So I'm just going to get rid of that word and I'm going to start over. Dash chad. I'm not sure why it's not giving me the dash. It should be in there, but for now I'm not going to worry about it because to figure that out and fix it's going to take up probably 10 minutes of our session. What I do want to look at, if you're writing songs, chances are you have first, second, third verses. So let's go ahead and create a second verse so we can put in the Baruch Shem lyrics. And the way that I do that is I go to this nifty lyrics box here, and you see how it lets me assign lyrics to different sections. I can call it a chorus or a verse. I'm going to create verse 2. When I move that to a 2, suddenly I have no lyrics. That's because I haven't written my second verse yet. So let's see what happens when I click right here on my first note. You see that it's giving me the cursor in a little bit of a different place. So it's going to let me put in words that are not, they're not going to get rid of my first verse. My first verse is still there. So my first syllable, my first word is ba, ruch. I'm looking at that and it's like way too close to my first verse. So there's an easy way to fix that. I'm just going to highlight any lyric in that second verse. And then these arrows over here, let me pull it up or down. So I can give it some space.
I think the ba is supposed to go where the she goes, is the pickup note.
Right.
Well, it depends what version you sing.
Yeah, it's minhag.
Oh, yeah.
So it is minhag. In my congregation, which is a Reformed congregation, we sing Baruch Shem. So I'm just going to notate it that way. You obviously would notate it however your congregation sings it. I want to show you something really cool about writing lyrics. So let's get the rest of these in. We've got Baruch. Did you see how finale put that long underline? I'm not sure what to call that. Because we have a note there where I didn't write a lyric.
Right.
So just assume that lyric is held out for those two notes. Shame, kid, vote up, shame, kid. Vote. So when we hold a syllable for more than one note, I'm using the tab to tell finale to just put in that long dash. I think even if I didn't put in the tab, finale puts in the dash automatically. Ma'ahu, here comes the train. Oh, lam, ba, ed. Okay, so we've got our basic lyrics in. We have two issues. One is that musically, whenever you have more than one note on a syllable, you want to put a slur across those notes. Okay? Here is my Smart Shape tool, and that includes slurs. Can you see this right side of my screen here?
No.
It's blank.
Okay. So I'll just tell you what's there. Actually,
Oh, you mean on the far right?
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
We can move over. We can move the pictures over to the left a bit.
Right. So this expression tool is letting me choose, do I want to put in a slur or a dotted slur? Do I want to put in a decrescendo, a crescendo, a trill? You name it, we can put it in. Okay, so that's really helpful when you start getting into details of your pieces. You might want to put in a crescendo or decrescendo. You use the Smart Shape tool. Right now, I want to put in a slur on right? We've got two notes sung together. Now, normally, I would put in just a regular old slur like that. The problem here is that the first verse has no slur and the second verse has one. And that's going to be very typical if you're writing multi-verse songs. So what I'm going to do instead, I'm going to get rid of that slur. I just select it and delete. I'm going to use a dotted slur. I double click on the first note and finale automatically sends my slur to the second note. Okay, let me get rid of the handle so you can see what it looks like. It's a little hard to see on screen, but when you print it, it's black. It's a dotted slur. And basically it's telling you, okay, some of these lyrics don't need the slur and some of them do. Okay, we're going to put in another slur over here for Malchuto. And it's going to be the same thing. It's a dotted slur because we're not using it in the first verse, only in the second verse. So I want to show you one more thing about slurs before we leave this. Let's say we wanted to slur like a whole phrase. Maybe we wanted to go, Shema Yisrael Adonai. Let's say that was one phrase, and we want to tell people, hey, sing it as one phrase. The way that you do that, you double click on the first note, and if you let go, it would automatically go to the next note, but I want to drag it over to whatever note I'm choosing as the end of my phrase, and when I let go, it gives me the slur. Now, this handle lets me change the shape, or I can right click, and I can say, change directions, just flip it. I want that slur to go up on top. So you have a lot of options for how to make things look the way you want them to look. That's really just a question of fiddling around in your software program until you know how it works. The thing that we're really trying to convey today is, how is the music supposed to look? So I do see a problem with the lyrics. Yisrael is hitting the slur and Eloheinu is hitting the slur. So we need to go back to our first verse of lyrics. Let's choose verse 1 over here. And then we click on any lyric in that verse, and it gives us these arrows that we can say, you know what, let's just pull it down a little bit. one of the key things to making your music look good is you never want anything bumping into anything else. Okay? In pulling that down, if we had to, we might need to pull the second verse a little further down. So we could then choose the second verse and say, yeah, let's pull it down a little bit, give it a little more space. So, you know, that's very basic, but you see how we have something that people could read? It's nice and clear. The other thing I think I want to do is move that second stave down a little bit because it's pretty close to the first one. This tool here, the page layout tool, when I click on it, it lets me drag things around. So I was actually happy with where that first one was, but let's move the second one down a little bit. Give it a little more white space so it's not so close to those lyrics. And so now when we look at it, it's very clear and easy to read. So does anyone have any questions about any of this so far? Wow, okay. So
I think we're unmuting. It takes a minute to unmute. This is Robbie. Would you add guitar chords for me?
ooh, because I always do this one with a rockin' guitar. I would love to. Finale, by the way, was written for long-haired composers, so the chord functions are really a little difficult. I don't love them. But let's do it anyway because this is what I use. It may be what some of you use. I suspect that some of the more modern software packages that were really created for singer-songwriters have much easier chord functions. All right, so what I do is I click my chord tool and I go to wherever I want my first chord and I click there and I'm going to put in a C chord. Shema Yisrael Ado. My next chord change is here. It's going to be an F chord. Nai Elo. And I click to my next chord. C G Ado. Here's a tricky one. Let's do a C with G in the bass. So it's C/G in the bass. Nai. This is going to be a G chord, or let's make it a G7. I'm literally just typing in these chord songs. Echad, here's a C. Now, you don't need to assume that you're picking these chords out of your head. Go play them on the piano or the guitar, and then come back and put them in when you're comfortable with what they need to be. But what do you think? Do those chords look good?
They need to be moved a little bit.
Yeah, they look kind of lousy.
But yeah.
So the first thing I want to do, let's take Majestically, which I know is this tool here. Let's just move it a little bit out of the way. Now let's go back to our... Hello? All right, let's go back to our chords and let's work with them. Before I move them to where they need to be, I want to change that font because they're just really tiny. This function is going to be in different places for different software programs. For Finale, it's a document option. So I go to document options. It brings up this really scary looking thing with a million things, but right in the middle of it is fonts. And then I go to chords and I'm going to say chord symbol, right? So I can choose a different font for my symbols, my suffixes, my alterations. Let's choose something that's really easy to read.
Show me the fretboard too after that. I'd like to see the fretboard.
I'd be happy to show you the fretboard. So let's choose, I don't know, let's do Calibri, which is a font that I like. And let's make it pretty big. And we'll say apply. And now you'll see that on the page, those chord symbols look different. They're bigger. Maybe it wasn't the greatest font choice. I can go back and change it if I want to. You can experiment until you find the one that you like. Let's do Arial. Arial's going to be big and heavy. Oh, those are big. So my old eyes really like those big chord symbols. And suffix. Let's do Times New Roman. So Times New Roman. Let's make our suffixes big. We'll say 14. We'll hit apply to see what that looks like. You know, we don't really have, this is a simple sheet, so it doesn't have a lot of suffixes.
Right.
But let's make both of those times 14 for the alterations and the suffixes. 5. So I'm going to close this. So now we kind of see what it looks like. Now is a good time to say, hey, those chords are way high, let's move them. And you do that the same way you do with lyrics. You're just going to hit your chord tool, click anywhere where you have a chord, and then use these arrows to move them down. So that seems like kind of a better place for our chords. Okay? So, you know, they're big and round. It's probably not the best font, but you can fool around till you get the perfect font. This brings up a great question that two things I want to show you about chords, because I know you're all working with chords. When I write in a chord, let's say I'm going to put a chord here, and it's a C chord. I can write C:0. That's how we do it in Finale. It's probably different in a different program, but what that does, when I hit enter, it brings up my chord suffix library. And I can just choose any of these, and you can see there are a ton of chords. So I might decide, hey, I want to put in a C minor 11 sharp 5 chord. There it is.
Kill me now. Sorry. Okay, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry, Robbie, I can't do that.
Yeah, as a guitarist.
I was just going to say, if any of you ever see me put a C M11 minor 11 number 5 chord on anything, send me packing.
And I'd like to ask my guitar expert who happens to be here on this very session, Barb Stambler, can you please play a C11? Can you do that? Just asking. Okay, that's all.
Yeah.
I know.
Thanks, Robbie.
Sure.
It's good to have a heckler in every crowd. So, you know, I write a lot of jazz and I use these chords all the time. You can also create your own chords. I might write in a chord and it's going to tell me I've never seen that chord before. For example, as a jazz player, I write C minor 7 like that. And when I hit enter, oh, wow, it couldn't find it? Do I want to add it to the library? Sure, I'd like to put that in my chord suffix library because I use it all the time. So I'll say yes. And now it's telling me I can change fonts, I can move things. So maybe I want to go to my 7, so I hit the next. And let's say I want to raise my 7 up a little higher, the way I like to write the chord. And when I click OK, now it looks the way I defined it. So you can add things. If you've got chords that you use all the time and Finale's not finding them, just put them in. One thing that Finale does that I don't like, it's going to place the chord symbol right above the note. But if I have a chord symbol like this that has a lot of alterations after it, it keeps it centered, and that means that my C is now, it looks like it's in the previous measure. So after you put in those chords, you have to go in. I'm selecting it and using my right arrow to move it over, because I want to make sure that the player knows that that C chord with all its alterations belongs in this measure, not the previous measure. Okay? So those are just some things about chords. Let me show you something else really, really helpful, a big time saver, okay? Let's say you've put in your own chords and you've decided on fonts and you're happy with the way it looks. Do you want to do all that again next time you open a new document?
No.
Everybody unmute and say no.
No.
Here's what you can do. In Finale, I go to Document, Document Options. I can either save the library I've just created. So let's call this, I'm going to say, yeah, choose everything, whatever. I wish that they would let me select all. They don't for some reason. I have to choose what I want to save. But I'll say, okay, we're going to save that. And now it's asking me what to call it. I'll call it WCN Webinar Library. And I save it. And it goes into a place where next time I open a document, if my document looks weird, like I can save so many different things. I can save 4 measures per line. I can save my fonts for the chords. I can save my font choices for the lyrics. I can save any expressions I've created, you name it. So if you are continually working in the same library and you're building it, you're changing and adding things, always save it. And then the next time you create a new document, just say, load library. Oh yeah, this is the one that I use. It's got all my stuff. It's going to save you like an hour worth of customizing things. I don't honestly know if the really simple software packages will give you that capability. I hope that they do. But you know, if you're willing to invest in Finale or Sibelius, I'm guessing that you will have those capabilities.
Robbie had mentioned before fretboard.
Oh, fretboards. Yeah. So let's put in some fretboards. So we're in our chord tool, and the chord menu, we want to say show fretboards. Wow, there they are magically. Now you can see that it messes up our spacing. So before we even look at what those fretboards are telling us in terms of fingerings, let's just get them to a place where we can see everything. So I'm going to go page layout. I'm going to pull this down, give us some space to put our frets in there. I'm also going to pull this down a little bit. Okay. And then we want to go back to our frets. And there are different ways to do this. I can go into my chord menu and I can do spacing and just give it tell it where to space these fretboards so that it automatically happens. Or the easier way, but maybe more labor intensive, is to grab things and move them. Okay. So, you know, we can grab these things and just put them where we want to. What I would do if I'm working with fretboards a lot is that I would get them positioned the way I want them, and then I would save that setting in my library, the way I just showed you to save a library, so that next time when you say show fretboards, you're not going to have to reposition them. So save the setting once you create it. I have to move majestically. Is somebody asking a question?
Yeah, I have a question.
Sure.
The chords are shown in the first position. Is there a way to move the chords to another position on the fretboard?
Absolutely. So I'm going into my chord tool. I'm going to highlight this fretboard. And if I right click on it, it lets me edit the fretboard.
Oh, cool.
And that brings up this great box where I can either use these tools to manually change things. You know, I can put that in there, or I can take it out, etc. Or I can clear everything and start over and write my own chord voicing. Like, you know, let's say it's a C major 7. I might just want to do that in first position. But let's say I want to do something that's in a different position. Let's do a D minor chord, because that's something that we often move up the fretboard, right? I can say show the fretboard number.
That's what I wanted to know.
And then I can tell it, play it on the 3rd fret. So now it's telling me these fingers, actually, so I've got these in the wrong place, but because I'm a pianist first and a guitarist second, it's helpful to me to have my guitar here when I do these things. But basically, yeah, you can tell it which fret number, which fingers, which open strings. Sorry, that was the wrong thing. It's the circle. Which open strings. If it's not intuitive, you can tell people don't play these 2 strings. But let me show you something really cool. You see how it says simple major triad up here? Because we originally, let me bring up the original chord, which is a C chord. Sorry. Edit fretboard. So now we're back to our C triad. If you say show group, it's going to give you all these different choices for different C chords. Actually, no, it's giving me different choices for simple major triads. There is a place to bring up all the different C chords. Hide group. Oh, also, for you multi-instrumentalists, if you're writing for a different instrument, there you go. You got all these choices. Here's guitar drop tuning right here. So you could do different tunings if you want to generate those fretboards.
Ukulele too.
And ukulele, yeah. So, you know, those are just some basics for working with fretboards. I do want to move on to show you something different. Let's go out of finale for a second. Oh, I see all your lovely faces. Let's go in.
Lisa, we have, just letting you know, it's about 7 minutes till 1 o'clock my time and
Okay.
2 o'clock your time. This is amazing, and I could probably do this for the next 6 hours, but just want to make you aware of that. Whoever can stay on is welcome to stay on. But I also, since we missed the very beginning to record it, I'd like for you to just do a quick recap of what they may have missed, which is getting on finale and opening a document. Oh, good. There's the mistakes on Shalom Rav.
Yeah.
I didn't find that many.
I'm torn because we have 6 minutes left, and this is really a 2-hour seminar. I'm happy to do follow-ups, and we can get into specific topics and follow-up sessions. But I can send this out to you guys as a follow-up to say, here are all the things that were wrong with it. It's too crowded. The lyrics have a font that's hard to read. There were no rehearsal letters. One of the most important things I want to show you, if we only have 5 minutes left, is how to notate your rhythms properly. Because I'm sorry, I get so many lead sheets coming in where the rhythms are not notated properly. So let's look at this really quickly. Right here we have, go to finale to show you this. All right. I'm rushing. I'm going to open up Shalom Rav with all the mistakes. Okay, so you see this measure here? Let's give this measure lots and lots of space, just so we can see it easily. Putting it on its own line. You don't have to worry about how to do that. I just want you to see it really easily. A lot of people send me music that's notated like this. Oh, Lord. Are you still seeing finale?
Yes.
Okay. So a lot of people give me music like this. Shalom Ra'av al Yisrael. There's a big problem with this, and that is that as a general rule, every measure should be splittable or divisible down the middle, right? So you need to be able to easily see where beat 1 is, beat 2 is, beat 3, and beat 4. And that means that the best way to write this is not, even though this is 2 beats, we don't want to do that. It's really hard to tell where the different beats are. So what we really want to do with this, we want to do this. Shalom Ra. Okay. So those 2 beats that we had for that note before, we can now see where beat 1 and beat 2. This right here makes up 2 beats. This right here makes up 2 beats. You always want to check for that in your music. Otherwise, it's really hard to read the rhythms and figure them out. So I know we have 3 minutes left. I want to
It's okay. It's okay. Don't rush. Just I know people have questions, I'm sure. So it's okay. Whoever has to go, we understand. This is fantastic.
Okay. Thank you. So if you look at this lead sheet for Shalom Rav, you've got a lot of places where the rhythms were not properly divided. Here's another measure right here where you can't tell where beat 2 is and where beat 3 is. You need to be able to draw a line right down the middle of that measure and have those beats really easy to read. So what I do is this becomes an 8th note, ta si, and then I'm going to add a quarter note and tie it. So now you can see beats 1 and 2 are right here. They're easy to see. Beats 3 and 4 are right here. They're easy to see. That rhythm's a lot easier to read, and it's correctly notated now. So I made that mistake all over this lead sheet, and if you look at the one I sent by email yesterday, you can go through and maybe circle them and try to figure out how to fix that so that you can see beats 1 and 2, and then beats 3 and 4. That's really important. So I think to wrap things up, knowing that we didn't cover everything, but I do want to take questions, I just want to walk you through this other sheet here. So I'm going to share something different now. Ooh, boy, am I mastering this technology. It's crazy. Let's see if this is there. Okay. So there's a series of steps, 10 steps to notate your piece. So the first step is either create or load your template with all your settings. So you're going to choose your fonts and your spacing, make sure you've got all the chord symbols in your library. You put in your tempo indication at the beginning of the piece, just like we did for the Shema. And then you're ready to start writing notes. And when you write the notes, you're going to write out the lead melody, right? You want to watch out for the rhythmic subdivisions. That's what we were just talking about. Make sure that the rhythms are notated so that you can see beats 1, 2, 3, and 4 clearly. And you also want to decide on the form. This is something, I'm going to show you a lead sheet from Transcontinental. Drives me crazy, even though I love and appreciate the work that they do. But I got to say that when you give me a lead sheet that's a total roadmap, where I can't figure out where the repeats are supposed to go, just get this window out of the way so I can see the page. Okay. This lead sheet is like you start at the beginning. You've got a first ending here, but wait, where is the repeat? It's way down here. Where's the second ending? It's way down here. You go down, you've got DCL coda under the staff here, but then you've got the coda sign over the staff here. Now, I understand they're trying to keep this to 1 page. They're trying to publish a book and they don't want it to be 500 pages. So they made a choice. We're going to give you a really difficult roadmap to follow because we need to get this piece of music onto 1 page. I generally don't do that. Now, I'm not publishing big books. I'm usually publishing single pieces of music. And my top priority is to make sure that everybody can read that piece of music easily. So instead of this confusing roadmap, what I did for Shalom Rav, I just have to move windows here. Let's see if I can find the right one, was I took out the repeats. I said, you know what? Let's just copy that A section. So here we've got Shalom Rav. There's a lot more space, a lot of white space. We've got rehearsal letters. We have measure numbers. Every section ends with a double bar, which is really helpful. So we've got Shalom Rav, our A section, our B section. Right? And then instead of doing a repeat with first and second endings spread out all over the place, I just copied the A section again. I didn't have to write it again. I took all those measures and I did copy and then I did paste. It was really fast. So then we call that a C section. And then we've got another section. Right? So here's our first repeat. So far we've read straight down, no repeats. We're going to have a DSL coda to take us back to Shalom. So DS is taking us back to this sign right at the beginning. It's nice and big, it's over the staff, everybody can find it easily. And same thing with to coda. It's big, it's bold, it's over the staff. So if I've made a decision to put my coda sign and my Dalsenio over the staff, I want all of them to be over the staff just for consistency. I don't want one over and one under. Okay? And then when I am going to go to the coda, I always put my coda on a new line. It just makes it easier to find when you're playing this live in a service or a concert. So here's my coda. It starts at the beginning of the line. It's easy to find. And that's how we got rid of all those repeats and roadmaps and, I think simplicity is really important when you're deciding on the form of your song. So if we go back to our checklist, deciding on the form is something that happens pretty early. I've made the mistake of writing an entire piece and then realizing, oof, the form is too convoluted, or, oh, the piece is way too long. So you sometimes have to make some difficult decisions. Here is Sue Horowitz's peace song. And I wanted to show this as an example because she has 3 verses. And in each verse, she places the words differently and she phrases slightly differently. So I had to call her and say, look, if I do it exactly the way you sang it, it's going to be 6 pages because every verse needs to be notated on its own with your exact phrasing and your exact word placement. Or I can put in a repeat, and I'm going to try my best to be faithful to what you sang, but I might have to standardize a few things so that we can actually use repeats instead of having a really long piece. And she basically said to me, I want you to notate it the way I sang it, but don't make it too long. And so, as the composer, I totally respect what she wants. I worked really hard to make that work. So that's why you see things like a dotted slur here, you see a little note here, you might see some things that are in parentheses because they happen on one verse and not on another. It's not so easy to do all this, but it is doable. So, just you have to sort of make those decisions up front. What's the form of my piece going to be? Do I want to put in repeats? Do I want to standardize my phrasing so that I can use repeats? Or do I just want to make it longer and sing it the way I want to sing it? So going back to our checklist, now that we've decided our form and we've written out the melody, then we can add our lyrics. When we add lyrics, we want to really be careful about spacing. So, make sure that the lyrics aren't bumping into each other. They shouldn't be bumping into the stems of the notes or the slurs that we've put on the notes. We just talked about deciding which verses should be written with repeats or when we need to actually just add more measures for a verse. And then just a reminder to add slurs. So if one lyric, one syllable has multiple notes, you need to put a slur on those notes, okay? Then we're going to add the chords, okay? We can include fret diagrams where necessary. I find it really cumbersome to have fret diagrams over every single note, every single chord in a piece. I want to show you Larry Milder's new Kiddusha from his new album, Acoustic Blessings. Buy it now, it's awesome. So I transcribed the album for him. And a lot of these chords were just normal chords, but I'm sorry, this isn't my final. this is the fun. A lot of the chords were just normal chords, but on a few of them, he said, I use a specific voicing and I want you to put that in. So I didn't want to have to put in fretboard diagrams through the whole piece. It makes it really hard to read. People don't need a fretboard diagram for an E chord if it's a normal E chord. So I only put them in for the chords where he was saying, please voice them like this. And everything else, people pretty much know how to play guitar and they just do it. It was very complicated figuring out how to put in four or five fretboard diagrams without having them appear throughout the whole piece. It took me like 2 hours of research to figure out how to do it. And if you're interested in that, let me know. And I will send you my cheat sheet for how to do it. It's actually easy to do. It just took me forever to figure it out. Okay? Another important thing we didn't talk about, I need to point it out. Larry originally sent me his Kiddushah. He's a tenor. He sings things really high. So he sang it in the key of F sharp major. And I looked at those notes in that key signature. I was like, whoa, people are going to be so scared of this when they see it. They're going to see F sharp major and they're going to decide not to play your piece. Now, granted, on guitar you can capo it up, but on piano you can't. So I really had to convince him. Notate it a little higher. First of all, that F sharp's really low for a lot of females. I can sing it, but a lot of people just won't. They won't do it. They'll say that's too low for me. And the key signature's crazy. So we ended up putting it in G. Look how much more user-friendly that is. It's only a half-tone difference. But a lot of women will say, all right, it's low for me, but I can sing it. I'm sorry?
I just want to say thank you for renotating it in G, because as someone who, and by the way, Anita Schubert, who's on this session right now, is also an incredible arranger and arranged a choral piece for me a couple years ago. And she understood that it needed to be transcribed into a key that was better for a guitarist to play. And not every transcriber understands that. And they're going to transcribe it in the key of F sharp minor when it could, when it could be transcribed in a simpler way. And so that you transcribed it into G. So that's really helpful. Not all transcribers are as guitar friendly, is what I want to say.
It's really important to make things friendly for other people, because it's one thing to say, I do it this way and I want it notated this way. And that's great. Actually, Larry came back to me after I did this and he said, we're doing a CD release party with a full band and I need it in my key for the band. So absolutely, I gave it to him in F sharp. That was what he needed. But when you're sending it out to the world and saying, hey, here's my piece, I hope everybody plays it, you want to make it really user-friendly. And so that's one of the things you can do to help with that.
Right.
Another thing you can do to make it user-friendly, you have some choices about time signature, especially when you're working in threes. So sometimes you could notate something in 3/4 or in 6/8. And I've had the issue with my own music where I start writing it in 6/8 because I'm feeling it like da 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 da. And I'm writing it and it's got so many ties and so many complex notes and so many 16th notes. And I realize, if I put this in 3/4, it'd be a lot of quarter notes and people are going to look at that and say, I can read that. So I go back and I change it. You really want to make things easy for people. So going back to our checklist, so we're adding chords. Again, Larry had that piece in F sharp, but his decision to put the chords in E, capo 2, made it really easy for people. And you want to sort of look at your piece, especially if you're writing a piece on piano, but you're putting in chords for guitarists. If you're not a guitarist, just call somebody, send them your piece and say, hey, what key should I put these chords in and capo it? So obviously you can capo up, you can't capo down. So, for something that might be in the key of B for a pianist, I might do it in G, capo 3, capo 1, 2, 3, 4. So yeah, just make your capo chords easy to play. After you've got your notes, your lyrics, and your chords, next you want to remember to put in dynamics. So any crescendos, dynamics, don't assume that people know. Yes, they may do your entire piece mezzo forte, But sometimes you can tell them, like a quiet section and then a crescendo might help a lot to make the piece more impactful. If there's any tempo change, you might put a retard at the end of your piece. Always put in rehearsal letters, put in measure numbers. The one thing I'll tell you about that is don't do both in the same place. So you see here, I've got an A, I've got a number at the beginning of every line, but when I put in this B at the beginning of the line, I got rid of the measure number. Because it just starts to look crowded, there's too much information. You're not going to tell people, go to letter B and measure 6, or 9, or whatever. You'll just say, go to letter B. The final details, we just talked about rehearsal numbers or letters. This is the biggest thing. Checking for bumping of elements. So, if you look at the Shalom Rav with all the mistakes, you see things are bumping into each other. These lyrics are hitting the notes. I think there's some play, yeah, look at this, this beam is hitting the lyrics. These chords are up way too high. Gently is on top of our D chord. You just want to make sure that nothing is bumping into anything else. And the minute you fix those things, if that's the only thing you fix, just look at when you give it some space and everything has its own space to be, it's beautiful. It's really easy to read. So you fix your spacing issues. In finale, I'll always make all of my sheet music 90% rather than full size. You know, I'm a woman of a certain age. I like things to be big, but honestly, finale makes them a little too big. So all of these lead sheets I've been showing you, I reduced the page to 90%. It's a very easy thing to do. You go into the page layout tool, you click on the page, and then you right click. Sorry, you go into the percentage tool. Let me show you very quickly if you have time. I'm going to share finale. So we had that Shema that we created. This. Okay. When I print this, I find that it's just pretty big. So my way to make it smaller very easily is percentage tool. I click on that. I'm going to click on the page. I don't want to resize the note, so you have to be careful to resize the correct thing. So you can resize a note, a stave, or a page. There we go. Resize page. And I'm just going to tell it, make it 90%. Hold the margins. Nothing else changes. It just makes it a little smaller. You want to be sure if you're going to resize your page like that you do it before you spend 20 minutes figuring out all of your line breaks. Because if you resize the page after you've done the line breaks, you might have to go through and respace your measures all over again. So in a piece that's got lots and lots of measures, sometimes you want to make sure that the A section ends at the end of a line and the B section starts at the beginning of a line. So here's the Shalom Rav in finale. You see that I try to make every section start at the beginning of a line. It just makes it really easy for the reader. So I always resize my page first, and then I massage those details to make them perfect. So let's go back to our list. We're almost at the end of our checklist. So we have reduced the page. We've adjusted the measures. The next really important thing is to print your piece. You might think it looks perfect on screen, and I often think it looks perfect on screen. And then I print it, and I'm like, whoa, I didn't see that. I missed this, whatever. There's something about holding it in your hands. So print it, take a red pen to it. I'm really lucky. I can give it to my husband and say, what's wrong with this? And he knows, because he has way more training than I do. But, you know, just email it to a friend. That's what WCN is for. And find someone who's willing to look at it and say, you know, I don't understand this chord, or I need a fretboard here, or I don't like the spacing on that, or I'm confused about where the repeats are sending me, or I usually do this note that way. So any of those things helpful to get a second pair of eyes. Another thing that you can do in Finale, let's go back to Finale real quick. Especially if you're someone that's not hearing the notes in your head, tell your software program to play it for you. So at the beginning of the session, we were talking about someone who really needs to plunk out the notes, doesn't hear them in her head. That's great. You should absolutely be writing music. Just let Finale or Sibelius or whatever you're using play it for you. You can hear if there are any mistakes. I purposely tell Finale to turn off the chords because I don't like the way it plays chords. And so it's really hard to hear my melody. But I think I showed you before, if you go into the score manager, you can decide what you want to play. So just moving a box out of the way so I can see this. Okay, score manager. For this staff, I told it to turn off the chords. You see it says chords and there's no sound. I turned it off, but I could tell it to play the chords. It's just going to sound really funky. But the other thing I can do, I can say play the chords on guitar. So let's put the chords on, let's see, is that plucked string? Yeah, acoustic guitar. Let's hear it. I don't know what that's probably going to sound really awful, but let's just see what it sounds like. Right from here. It's skipping all the chords I created because I didn't take the time to say, when I create this chord, this is what you need to make it sound like. When you define a chord, you can tell it what notes to play in the playback. Since I don't use chord playback, I don't bother to do that. So does anybody have any questions about that part of it? So let's go back to our basic steps, okay? You're going to review it by having someone else look at it and also by playing it? Yes. Somebody spoke. Oh, okay. And then the next thing is to distribute your piece. You know, I assume the idea is you want everybody to know about your piece and to be able to play it. So, you know, figure out where to put it out there. I know that there are a lot of options these days for distributing recordings and sheet music. And the idea of this seminar is to help you so you can put your sheet music out there for everybody to use.
So Lisa, this has been just amazing, riveting in so many ways. And I'm, you know, I would love to ask Anita Schubert because you use Sibelius, is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
Just,
great.
I'd love to continue the discussion. It might have to be at another time because we're running late. I actually have to go. And Lisa, I wanted us to be able to add to the end of the recording what happened at the beginning of the recording. And we've lost several people because of the timing. But I'm just overwhelmed, and I understand so much more than I did before. Don't worry, Anita, I won't be. I don't think I'll be doing this on my own anytime soon. Can we get a copy of the basic steps document? If you want to send it out, just send it to me and I can disseminate it to the WCN. And if there are people who are interested in finding out more from you, can you, I will add the recording of this on the WCN and say for more information, because you have so much to teach us. I wish we had so much more time. It's been absolutely really riveting.
I'm thrilled to take questions. If people, you know, want to send me their stuff and ask me questions, I'm happy to do that. And I wanted to get this into the recording at the end of the session. This is top 10 reviews. They spent 40 hours looking at different software applications, music notation. They give you the price as well as the capabilities. It's pretty detailed. And so that's a good place to start if you're looking for software.
Okay.
But yeah, thank you so much, guys. I really appreciate your being here. And I will distribute that checklist and maybe one or two other things that might be helpful. Feel free to come back with any questions.
The reviews might be helpful too, because
Yeah.
for that for singer-songwriters versus choral conductors versus all those different categories that you mentioned.
Absolutely. And Robbie, thank you so much for doing the technical side of this. This is awesome.
Doing my best. So,
Thank you.
my pleasure.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you, Lisa and Robbie.
Thank you guys so much.
Thanks so much.
Lisa, you stay on for a minute. Okay, everybody else?
Everybody
Yeah.
have a good day.
Have a great day, everybody. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Next Wednesday, we're on for another session. Okay, so Lisa, do you want to go over just the beginning of the session? I believe we talked about whether or not we were singer-songwriters, and then you also opened a brand new document, and I think that's all we missed. So for those of you who are watching this on the recording, the very beginning was cut off, but we are going to just do a quick demo of how to open up a document in Finale.
Okay. So I can also add to something that I forgot to say before, which is that if you're not sure how your music should look, copy it from a piece of music you really like. Copying is a good thing. I don't mean copying the notes, but look at it, see what the page looks like. If you have questions like, where do I need a slur? What does a tied note look like? How should the lyrics look? Open up a book, and that is a great way to start.
Good. That's a good suggestion.
Okay, so we're going to go to Finale. We're going to create a new document. So in Finale, I say File, New. This might be different in a different software package, but it will be similar. I'm going to use their Setup Wizard. Create a new ensemble. Sure. Hit Next. And it gives you some choices, like what kind of ensemble. Keyboards, voices. If you're writing for choir, you'd put in multiple voices. But for now, I just want to put in one blank staff. So I say Add, Next. My title, let's do the Shema. Shema, there's no subtitle. The composer, Sulzer. No arranger. Copyright is actually public domain. But you put in your name if it's your piece. So now we have some choices. We want to figure out a key signature that's going to be really easy for people to read. An awful lot of our writing happens in 4/4, or you could use that symbol. It depends on what you're used to seeing. Some people might want the field to be 2/4, but in general, it's either going to be 4/4 or 3/4 for most of our singer-songwriter things that we do. Okay, so let's choose 4/4. We can choose a key. Going up adds sharps, going down takes them away, and then starts adding flats. And it's really cool because it tells me not only how many flats I have, but what the name of the key is. So let's do it in C major. We also have the option to do minor keys if we want to, and it's going to tell me what the minor key is. Now let's do a major key, and then we want to put a tempo marking at the beginning. So for Shema, I'm going to say majestically, and let's just make it quarter note equals 88. We could choose, for example, in a piece in 3/4, we might say a dotted half note equals 88. So depending on the time signature of your piece, you can choose what that note should be. I always go to a metronome. I use an online metronome on my computer to make sure that I've got it just right. You can change it later, but as you're writing and you use the playback function, the playback will play it at this tempo. And if you got it wrong, it's kind of a pain in the neck. You have to go change it. If you want a pickup measure, you have to click this and then tell it how much of a pickup. So for Shema, we have Shema Yisrael. So the pickup is an eighth note. It's that sh syllable. I'm going to choose the eighth note and tell it to give us the pickup measure. So now it gives me my document. I could just start writing notes, but there's some things I like to do first. I like to get rid of the extra things I'm not using. I'm going to go to my text tool, and I'm going to get rid of arranger, I'm getting rid of subtitle, I'm getting rid of score. So the next thing I want to do is get a normal number of measures on. So I'm choosing my measure tool, and I'm going to say select all, and let's do 4 bars per line. So for finale, I say utilities, fit measures. And I can either say lock the selected measures. I might select 3 measures and say lock those onto a line. But for now, I'm going to say lock the layout of this document with 4 measures in each system. Okay. There we go. So now I'm ready to write notes. And you can enter these notes from a keyboard. If you have a MIDI keyboard attached to your computer, they're very inexpensive. They don't have any sounds of their own, so they will use the finale or the Sibelius sounds so that you can hear what you're playing. And whatever note you play on the keyboard is going to show up here. Each program has its own way of assigning the rhythms. So I'm going to first assign the rhythms and then assign the notes. In finale, let's just show you on this next measure. An eighth note is 4 on my keyboard, literally just the number 4. A quarter note is the number 5. A half note is the number 6. Let's go to the next measure. If a whole note is the number 7. A 16th note, by the way, is just, you can see it's logical. Working your way left, you're cutting your timing in half. Working your way right, you're cutting your time, you're doubling your timing. So let's say that this first one should be a 16th note. 8th note was a 4, 16th note is just a 3. Okay? So let's get rid of all those notes and let's actually notate the show. So I'm going to use my computer keyboard to do this. Getting rid of notes. Okay, so here we are. I've got Shema, so that first one's an 8th. Shema Yisra. So I've got 2 beats. I'm going to put in a number 6 to get a half note. And then Yisra is 2 8th notes. Yisra. Look at that. All right, I made a mistake. I'm in 4/4, and the Shema is in 3/4. So I need to go up to my time signature tool and say, you know what? This whole piece needs to change. It's not going to be in 4/4. I right-clicked on the first measure because that's where I want this change to take place. And I'm just going to change the time signature 3/4. So now, when I'm writing in my rhythms, they should actually work. Go back to my speedy entry tool. I've got my Yisra, it's half note, which is number 6. 2 8th notes, that's 4/4. The same thing again. El Adonai Elo. And here's where it changes. Hey Nu Ado. So hey Nu is 2 quarter notes. Hey Nu Ado, 2 8th notes. Nai F. And then Chad is 3 beats, so it's a dotted half. Okay? So
I think that's where we came in.
Oh,
I think
good.
that's where we came in. So beautiful. Go ahead and end recording.
Thank you
I can do it.
so much. Let's see.